Yeah.
So let's head on into the next section where we'll be talking about FFP,
Yeah. Okay.
um, what
Let
it's
me.
about,
Yeah.
why
Let me.
you think, whether it's a failure, whether it's a success, is it
Yeah.
fair, the whole wrap. So take it away. What do you think?
Okay. So let's just say there's been many iterations of financial fair play
Yeah.
for the most part European football, right? It's mostly European football. In most other parts of
Mm-hmm.
the world, no one has enough money for this to be a problem anyway. So it's mostly European football.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
The name has gone from FFP, financial fair play, to sustainability and something rules.
Yeah,
Um,
profitability,
Profitability
PNS, profitability and
and sustainability
sustainability.
rules. For
Yeah.
those who are paying attention, Nottingham Forest are in trouble right now. The whole idea is over a 3-year period, you're allowed to lose a certain amount of money or a certain percentage of your revenue or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And over
Mm-hmm.
that 3-year accounting period, Everton violated those rules over those 3 years.
Yeah.
Nottingham Forest, we
Yeah.
saw when it was happening. We knew when it was happening. It was 2 seasons ago when they bought like 30 players, right? That's
Yep.
when it was happening, right? They came up from the championship and they're like, hey, we're not going back down. It's crazy out there. So they went and bought everyone that was looking for a club and put them on big wages for a small team that hadn't really been around for 20, 30 years, right? It used to be a
Mm-hmm.
big club, but now a small team. So
Mm-hmm.
so that's how they got caught up. We know that. They signed guys like the what's the name of the former Man United player who is now in Korea? Lingard, Jesse Lingard, Jesse
Jesse
Lingard.
Lingard.
It worked out so poorly for them and for him. Aston Villa wanted no West Ham wanted him. He didn't go. He went to Nottingham Forest. Now he's playing in Korea, and then the same thing happened for Everton, right? And then we have Man City who are able to because of their ownership structure, they're able to self deal and knock some money their way from fake
Mm-hmm.
sponsors and whatnot, to
Yeah.
offset the balance, right? So that's where it
Mm-hmm.
is. So, but I don't want to talk about the sustainability and whatever. I think that's all made up. I want to talk about the original FFP, which is the whole idea was do not spend more than what you're making. That's really what it is, right? And what I thought
Yeah.
was interesting was back in the maybe 10, 15 years ago, the old Wigan chairman was interviewed and someone asked him, FFP would be good for if there was a salary cap in the EPL, would you support it?
Mm-hmm.
And he said no.
Mm-hmm.
And the interviewer was like, but that would be good for Wigan because it would control how much money anyone can
Yeah.
spend on wages because
Mm-hmm.
wages is
Yep.
really where people think it's the sign on it's the transfer fees and
Transfer
whatnot.
fee.
Those
But it
big
actually contributes also. It
it
does.
does, it does, it does. But the
It
wages, I
does.
mean, we're talking like bench players on the biggest teams make way more money than starting players on the worst teams, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
big difference. But
Yeah.
what this guy said, no, I want to compete on a level playing field. I don't want anything artificial. So that made me think. So this is my theory. I've shared this with you before. I think
Mm.
from a political point of view, at least in what
Mm-hmm.
people espouse, whether they actually believe it or not, you would say
Mm-hmm.
Europe tends to be a little less capitalist, in their political realm than America, right? But when it
Yeah.
comes to their sports, Europe is 1,000% capitalist. It's like you do whatever you want to do, nobody cares.
A
But when it
million
comes to,
percent capitalist.
right, 1,000,000%. But when it comes to American sports, it's like
Yeah.
the rich people are like, we're not going in unless we're guaranteed we cannot lose. So that's why there's
Absolutely.
relegation in Europe. There's no relegation in America, right?
So
It's
you
a
have
closed system in America.
collective bargaining
Collect
agreements in the US. Yeah. So where everybody defines what percentage of the pot will
goes
come
to the players.
goes to the players, the owners. It's crazy.
And then there's my last point before I turn it back to you. The concept of parity,
Yeah.
Parity. in the American sports arena, that's almost like sacrosanct, right?
Yeah.
Because let's just take the NBA, 30 teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every fan of every team thinks they can win every year, which is crazy. And not only that, they think they have the right to win every year. They think they can attract anybody, and they have the right to attract anybody. They think there's
You're
no
talking about
hierarchy.
you're talking about New York Knicks more than the
Yeah, I'm
rest of
talking about
them.
us. Yes, but in European leagues, there's a hierarchy.
Yep,
Like Nottingham Forest, we keep picking on them. They don't come into the season thinking they're gonna win anything
absolutely.
because there's a real hierarchy. There's no parity. The Bournemouth Stadium sits like 10,000 people.
Yeah.
You know, Man U 73,000, Emirates,
Yep.
Arsenal 60,000.
60,000.
West Ham plays in the Olympic Stadium, the London Stadium. I don't even know what the capacity is. It's crazy, right? They don't do the
Yeah.
same thing. They're not the same club. They don't compete on the same level. They cannot attract the same players. There's no max salaries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Messi's salary when it was at Barcelona was pretty
Mm-hmm.
much the worth of some clubs.
Yep.
It's it's just crazy. So for me,
It is.
so
It is
let's
crazy.
try and bring this home. Can football benefit from a hard cap, and the NFL as a hard cap, which you can go over, the NBA as a soft cap, which you can go over, and then
But
there's a gray area a
you
little bit
you
where
you
you
pay
start paying
you pay
taxes.
$1.
Yeah,
Exactly. You pay $1 for every dollar you go above, and it goes
yeah,
into the pot of the league, and it shares with the teams that didn't go above.
that didn't go above, and then after that
Exactly.
you now get to a hard cap because you can't keep going on
Exactly.
forever,
You now get a hard
right?
cap. Exactly.
So what do you think? It's a lot. We're trying to do this in like 10-15 minutes, which is impossible, but we'll try.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go back. So FFP to start with was an UEFA construct,
Yeah.
right? They were the ones that said, you know what, we're scared. We need to prevent financial doping. We need to prevent clubs from spending more than they earn. And also, we need to avoid immediate financial problems, which might threaten the long term survival of clubs, right? Because people were just, see what happened to Leeds. Leeds almost, when they had Mark Viduka, what's his name, Alan Smith, Harry Kewell, they were balling, right? And all of a sudden, they were out of Europe, out of the Premier League, and Leeds almost died. In fact, Leeds died. They probably just got resurrected. So that's what UEFA was trying to look at. But the Premier League now decided to do their own bit, like you said, which is the profitability and sustainability rules thing. Um, but before then, even before UEFA started FFP, you had some leagues that already had their own limited version of FFP.
Mm.
So the French league, for example, they didn't just have that orientation or that mentality of developing young players. It's because there was a rule in place that limited your spending. Yeah. Which is why it's not as if French clubs don't have rich owners. They do,
That's true.
right?
That's
But
true.
because of those regulations, they more or less imbibe that culture of developing young players. Same thing with the Bundesliga, right? So a lot of teams too developing young players, and Bayern sat on top of the food chain. They've been on top of the food chain forever. You will be if you're sponsored by Allianz, sponsored by Mercedes Benz. All the Adidas, all the big German companies were lining up, right, to sponsor Bayern Munich. Yeah. So that is the genesis of FFP. But the PNS is an interesting one. So you're right. You're allowed to make losses of £15 million a year over a 3-year period, and those losses can go up to 105. But you see that 90 million, there is a difference between the 15 and the 105. Your parent entity needs to be able to fund that deficit if it happens. So Everton, for example, Everton went as far as 124 over a 3-year period. And Everton said, and which was why they reduced their points to 6 points. Everton said that the Russian-Ukraine war really, really affected them because they were this close to agreeing something with Usmanov. But when the UK government said don't do anything with anybody from Russia,
There you go.
right? it messed them up, right? And so it was a ripple effect. It was COVID, then it was that, and it was, which is why they kind of they listened to them and they brought their whatever down to 6 points. Now, your brothers, Manchester City, they have 115 charges against them. 115, right? Ranging from 2009 till 2018 or so.
Yeah.
And if they see, I don't know what will happen to them if I don't think the 115 charges will go away.
They can't.
I don't think it will. I don't know. I try to get the details of the charges so that we can kind of list it out. Maybe when you see this, when you listen to this and you watch on YouTube, we'll probably have a still that shows what the charges are.
Okay,
yeah,
that's a good idea.
So so this is exactly what's going on. So I like this. I like what FFP is about. Okay, because this is the only way you can protect the smaller clubs. It is not limiting what you can spend. What it is saying is spend within your means. It doesn't even say revenue. It says you're allowed to make losses up to 105 million pounds. Akin, 105 million pounds is not small money. You understand?
Yeah.
But these clubs want to gamble. They want to gamble. They believe me pumping in money is going to be the solution. Look at Chelsea, for example, right now. And I really want to talk about Chelsea.
Do we have to?
Well, yeah. We have to. We have to, right? So, full disclosure, I'm a chartered accountant, right? This is what I do for a living. So I understand what Chelsea is doing. So the accounting policy when it comes to player acquisition is it goes this way. If I buy, let's say I'm Arsenal, I want Akin to come play for me. I buy Akin in his dream. I pay 50 million pounds for Akin. That 50 million pounds, if Akin signs a 5-year contract, I can amortize that 50 million pounds over 5 years.
Yeah.
So that what hits my account every year is 10 million naira. Okay? That same 50 million pound, if Akin had signed a 10-year contract with me, right, it will now be 5 million per year. Remember, this 5 million contributes to this 105 million annual revenues that we're talking about, and loss that we're talking about. So Chelsea thought that they had found a way, okay, to job the system. Banking on, if we buy young players, their value will always go up.
Yeah.
But now here is the flip side of it. The PNS rules have been updated now. You can't sign players for 8.5 years anymore. It's 5 years.
I told you that was going to happen. I told you they were going to
But we knew that was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen. But what I didn't like was they should have made it retrospective. They should have punished Chelsea. But what they said is you can't do it anymore. The ones you did can stay, right? Which I was like, come on, why give these guys this leeway? Why don't you make it retrospective, punish them, cancel the contracts they have, and force them to make it 5? But they will still get caught up. Because here's the thing. So let's say, okay, I paid 50 million for you, sign a 5-year deal. So that means by the end of year 2, I've taken 20 million to my P&L, my income statement. And sorry guys for all these jargons, but just bear with me. You get what I'm saying. So by end of year 2, on your balance sheet, you still have 30 million, which is the value of Akin's contract. If I then sell Akin, for example, for 20 million naira, that means I've made a loss on 10 million naira because I had a balance of 30 million and I sold him for 20. So that means a Mikhail Modric right now, or give me another player, or a Lavia, or whatever. If the
Caicedo, Fernandes.
All of them.
Yeah.
If the fair valuation, if what other clubs are willing to pay for them is not up to what Chelsea is carrying in their books, Chelsea are in deep, deep, deep trouble. The only people that can bail them out are the Saudis. So somebody also needs to check that related party transactions between Chelsea and the Saudis,
Of course.
because that's the way. Because who buys Koulibaly for that ridiculous amount? Who buys, what's his name? The goalkeeper, the Senegalese goalkeeper.
Uh,
well, for that ridiculous amount.
Saudi.
Yeah, it's the Saudi guys.
And then
So
the
this is the
question is, what sporting reason do you have to get rid of that man? To get rid of all your goalkeepers and bring in brand new goalkeepers? Think about it. We talked about it. I think I talked about it last episode. What was the
yeah
point of flushing everybody out and buying 30 new players? I wasn't exaggerating at 30. It was literally 30 new players. That's
30 new
30.
players. Yeah, yeah,
What was the point?
yeah. It's ridiculous.
They won the
So I
Champions League
think
2 seasons before.
Chelsea fans look away right now. If your young players don't increase in value, you guys are in deep trouble. The FFP is going to come, PNS, not FFP in this case. UEFA will still come up with their own stuff, but the
Mhm.
Premier League, they're going to come after you guys hard. Hard. And it's not going to be fun times for Chelsea. So now going back to the question of whether a hard cap, I can agree with the Wigan chairman.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah.
I'm not a fan of the cap system. Okay, I mean, it is if you have an ecosystem and the value within your ecosystem is you've built that value, there is that intrinsic value, then let people spend within their means. I like
Mhm.
the P&S rules as they are right now. In fact, it doesn't even say, oh, spend what you've spent from your profit. It has given you room, wiggle room,
To
a
move up.
£105 million.
Hmm.
Dude, what else do you want? What else do you want? But the Bayern, the Barca, the Barcelonas of this world, the Real Madrids of this world, they're not happy because they believe that they can, if you open up this stuff, that they have enough financial power, they have enough clout, enough presence to be able to just make this a situation where we want limitless spending. We want to buy anybody we want to buy without anybody looking at our books, and we just want to make something. I don't think that's sustainable,
Yeah,
right? As it stands, if you are buying Mbappe, or if Mbappe had been, for example, let's look at an Osimhen. I heard his release clause is 130 million pounds.
it
I'm like,
is.
really,
Yeah.
really, 130
Wait,
million
are you
pounds?
saying it's too much or not enough?
Of course, it's too much. Which human being is worth 130
Okay.
million
All
pounds?
right. So let me jump in. So you're right. On an absolute level, no one is worth that amount. But when Chelsea comes in and pays 100 and was it 20 or 25 million for
For Enzo?
Enzo Fernandez? That's his name?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And then they pay 100 and was it 5 million or
105 for Modric.
for no for yeah, and then how much did they pay for Caicedo? Moises Caicedo. Same
Same,
amount.
around the same range.
Okay,
Yeah,
how do you spend 330-ish million on three players
yeah.
in one transfer cycle? So
Which is why I said, Aki, they need to watch out, right? Their fair value, yes, fair value market is how much a willing buyer and seller
yeah,
agree
yeah,
on the
yeah.
transaction, right? Chelsea's market is different from every
Hmm.
other person's market, right? We thought City's market was different, right? Then Chelsea came back and they just said, "You think you guys can be stupid? We show you we're way more stupid than you."
Yeah.
And they just they just decided to, it is absolutely ridiculous. So by the time these guys flop,
Mm.
and none of them is looking. The best player is Cole Palmer, who they bought for a way cheaper amount
45 million.
than a Modric.
45 million.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So right now, if you're looking at Palmer and Modric, let's say it averages out. Let's say Palmer's value has probably increased to like 65, 70, sake of argument. There is no way Modric is not up to 40 million right
No,
now in
it's
terms
not.
of valuation.
It's not.
So that means you're gonna absorb 60 million, 65 million ish if you're gonna sell him.
So,
So right now they're looking for somebody to take on a loan or
yeah.
something like that. It's just ridiculous.
So people will say, what about other clubs? So I'll just tell on myself, right? Arsenal released uh, their financials, their last
Yep.
season's financials this past week. Arsenal lost
Yep.
52 million pounds.
52 million pounds. Yep.
18 million of that was from the mistake they made with Pepe, right?
Pepe.
Yeah, which
Exactly.
you and I believe was some kind of financial irregularity, money laundering, whatever it is. Don't quote
Something
us.
else exchange hands.
Something
It's
happened,
not just Pepe.
right?
Pepe alone can be worth 75 million pounds.
70,
As at when
70,
we
73 million pounds was what Arsenal paid
73
for.
million pounds.
Yeah, but speaking of the amortization, over however many years, they when they had to cancel the contract, the effect on the books was 18 million pounds. That's
Absolutely.
that's about a quarter of what was remaining. And the
Of the
crazy
loss
thing,
that they made.
yeah, the
Yeah.
crazy thing about that was Emery was the manager at the time. Emery said, "I want a right-footed winger that plays on the left." You know who he was
Zaha.
looking at? He was looking for Wilfred
He,
Zaha, right?
Wilfred Zaha. Yeah.
The brain trust, and it was literally the brain trust, that's what they called themselves, that ran Arsenal at the time,
Mm-hmm.
was like, there's a guy in France, is left footed that plays on the right. We want that one. He's younger. It wasn't the worst logic in the world. It was younger. But what they didn't think about was Sakai is coming on the same flank. You know, what are you doing? Are you're blocking the way of one of your brightest stars in forever? And you're paying 72 million
I,
pounds to a guy that was what, 30 million like 2 days before you bought him.
I can That acquisition was too stupid
Yeah,
for it not to be
it was something.
something
Yeah,
else. Right? Something else was packaged in that deal.
yeah.
That's the only if nothing else was packaged in that deal, right? Then whatever came to the Bain Trust, they were all fired eventually. I think they
Yeah.
deserve what came
And
their
a
way.
lawyer was put in to
They,
oversee things at Arsenal, so something was going on.
absolutely.
All right.
Something was going on. Anyway, so just to summarize this, Akin, yeah, we all agree. PNS, FFP, whatever it's called, it's a good thing. Cap, the idea of capping is not it, right? And you notice that the transfer season that just happened, the winter transfer window was it was meek, it was
No one
silent, it
spent
wasn't
any
as
money.
because when Everton was docked 10 points and Forest are about to be docked and City have 115 charges, they realized, shoot, these guys are serious.
Yeah,
That is why Arsenal decided to loan a goalkeeper, right, with an obligation to buy.
yeah.
It's there's a reason for that. There's a reason for
3
that.
million loan fee.
Anyway,
So can
three
I say
million loan
something
fee.
to wrap? So
Yes.
you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the American leagues, and I talked a little bit about it as well. One of the downsides of having the cap, and then
Mm-hmm.
in addition to the cap, also having a collective bargaining agreement that says X percentage of league revenue must go to the players, right? That's great for the
Yeah.
players. But what ends up, and then having max salaries, is everyone who
Yep.
can play a little bit now thinks they're a max player and they must make max money, right?
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep.
what ends up happening, let's take a LeBron in his prime, not LeBron of today, LeBron in his prime. There was a
Yeah.
time when LeBron was legitimately on that Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi level. So I would
Trajectory. Yeah.
argue for all those years, he was grossly underpaid, right? Because
Yeah.
he's making the same money that let's just say a Bradley Beal was making. So every team,
Yep.
because of the parity, every team now thinks, oh, I can pay my best players at the LeBron level, which makes no sense. That doesn't happen in European football, right? Because in European
But
football,
you need to use your cap. I can remember.
yeah, and then
You need
oh
to
yeah,
use your cap.
there's a cap floor
So
too. Oh,
even if
sorry,
you
there's
have
a salary floor.
crap players,
Yeah,
exactly. If you have crap players, you have to pay
you
them.
have to pay
You
somebody.
understand?
Yeah, you have to pay
You have to pay
somebody.
somebody. You can't just sit on your money.
Yeah.
You have to pay somebody,
So all of
which
that was
is
because of a strong union on the players' side,
yeah,
and European football has
absolutely,
strong, but for them it's mostly about player welfare and stuff like that. And because of the structure, it's not
exactly.
as much about salaries as I think they all go together. If you don't have a cap, then you can't really say I want X percent of the cap. You see what I'm saying? Like, so you
I
can't
do.
have one without the other. When you have one, you will
I
have the
get it.
other. So
Yeah, I do. I do. Anyway, so whoever is listening, I think we've done a detailed, in my opinion,
detailed enough, yeah.
assessment of PNS, FFP within the time frame that we have. So we're gonna move on.